of that particular religion.
What about any discoveries, Jonathan, of any kind of nuclear weaponry or anything like that? I mean, I've always heard that they have found glass that could only have been created under some intense, incredible heat under the sands of the desert, which could be nuclear. Did you ever discover anything like that?
Well, yes, there is like that over in Iraq. It's also been found in the North African desert, in the Sahara area, in Libya in particular, and it's virtually identical to the glass produced in the Alamogordo explosion in New Mexico, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's virtually identical to it, and there are traces of radioactivity in a couple of parts of the world, even today as well. In fact, just 10 miles, I think it would be, roughly about 10 miles west of Jodhpur in the province of Rajasthan in India, there's a 3-square-mile area which is considered to be highly dangerous because there's so intense radiation there. It has been established for a while that the birth defects in the modern population and the cancer in the area was more than normal, and the levels of radiation that were registered on gauges sent out by the government indicated that there was definitely radiation there. Scientists went in and they unearthed actually the ruins of a series of structures there. It looked like an ancient city. And they estimated the population of that city to have been something like 500,000 at the time. And the irradiation from that blast was still affecting people who built their houses nearby.
Now, it could have been some kind of an object that struck, or it could have been a true nuclear bomb, right?
Yes. There is a record in ancient Indian literature of one country warning another that they're going to send a missile across to destroy their city, and warning them to get out within 7 days if they want to escape it.
Oh, that's interesting. How about Atlantis? Did you come across anything of records of Atlantis?
There are one or two writings. There was a Dutch document that was found a few years ago, which goes back, I think, about 1,500 years, something like that, and said we are now so many years from the Atlantis disaster. In other words, there were other people who kept a record of such a place. Now, I've got two theories about this. One is that this could have been actually a description of the world that was in existence prior to the great disaster, after which Egypt and these other countries sprang up. It could have been the Mother X civilization. I guess that's one way to put it.
Sure.
Alternatively, there may also have been a small civilization, not so large, but one that would have been a basis of such a legend. There are people who speak of one near the island of Thera in the Mediterranean, others in the great centre of the Atlantic Ocean. And there are similarities for all of these with the legend of Atlantis. The various people all present pretty good cases. I'm leaning more to the fact now that the numbers that were given were misunderstood. The number 10 was not the way it was first understood, but it was 1/10 of that, both as far as distance and size was concerned, and as far as time was concerned. And it's a big subject, but I guess we could go on for half an hour on that one. Yes, I believe that Atlantis did exist. Whether it was the whole world civilization or whether it was just a smaller post-disaster civilization is still open to question, and the jury's still out on that, in my opinion.
All right, Jonathan, you've got to set the stage for this Chinese coffin story.
Okay, George. Well, as I put on my website, after the coffin came life, after 2,100 years. These Chinese archaeologists were cracking open a tomb from the Han Dynasty. It was out there in the Fulhang Mountains, and beside the mummy that they brought out were containers of ancient seeds. And so one of them mentioned to the other one, look, let's put a damp cloth over these. We don't want them to crack. They're so old. And so they just did that, and then they forgot about them, and for a few days they kept on excavating, unaware of what was happening behind them. And then one of them happened to lift the cloth, and that's when the shock came. Still alive, would you believe, George, after 2,100 years, there were 40 seeds that had sprouted into tomato plants.
Are you kidding me?
Now, you just imagine that. The tomato was held to have been discovered, along with its native South America, just 4 centuries ago, or something like that. Isn't that so?
I think so.
But, you know, we've got to re-examine history here. Here are journeys that have been long forgotten, and then how do those tomato seeds get into China? Tomatoes weren't growing in China. They were growing in South America. And what this does to me is it just makes my eyes wide open, because the classical method of research into the ancient world just got bogged down, and we cannot come to the right conclusions. And this is one of the cracks that comes into the whole system when we begin to find things where they should not be, George.
That is incredible. I seem to be bouncing around here because there's so many great stories, but that's just what we'll do tonight. In Oklahoma, you say there was a discovery there that was bulldozed. What is that?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, that's not been too long ago either. The Oklahoma one is close to home, or closer to home than I am. Now, what is threatening? I want to ask a question here. What is threatening about an archaeological find that it needs to be restricted or covered over?
I would say nothing should be.
You're right. Now, in East Oklahoma, there was an unusual stone structure found. It was composed of stones, and some of the stones were taken and analysed, and it appeared to be, from all indications, the remains of a huge smelter for refining gold ore. Now, this was several thousand years old.
Mm-hmm.
It was not the work of the indigenous population, nor the work of modern times. And crystals of gold and red mercury oxide were found in the traces of at least one specimen that was found here. Now, on one of the stones, there were some symbols noticed. And a fellow by the name of Gary Vay, I don't know if you heard of him.
No, I have not.
Okay, he was a man. He was a linguist who has been researching what he calls the first tongue symbols that are found in all over the world, actually, showing that there may well have been a global language at one time. Now, he was interested in this because they were similar to something that he had seen elsewhere. But about the same time, men came onto the excavation site. They abruptly shut down the excavation. Bulldozers were brought in to cover the whole remains with earth. Now, the people who owned the land were threatened with harm should they ever allow anyone to dig on their land. And they were just told, forget what you've seen. They suspected the intruders were from some arm of the government. But no one, of course, has been able to identify who these people were. But here we have sites being shut down or quickly buried. And this is happening in many, many countries, not just in America.
Man, that's something. Let's move over to Egypt again. The pyramids, and we didn't concentrate a lot on this, you think were moved by some kind of vibration or sound. Do you think they were, maybe they have thousands of people and they all had a hymn of the same kind of sound? Or how do you think they did this? Vibration.
Yes. There's at least one record from ancient Egypt which talks about the banging, a rhythmic banging, like hammers banging, producing a sound. And also, there's another one talks about singing certain notes in harmony. And evidently, this is something that does produce a resonance that can either change the atomic structure of an object or do something to the gravitational